Well, hello, District 5960 and Sharks. My name is Lauren, and on behalf of Kagezi Healthcare Foundation and our Minnesota Partnership and Rochester Rotary Club, I want to say thank you so much for hosting Michaela and I. We're so excited and honored to be here seeking funds today that will connect culture, people, and technologies using CAHEFO Minnesota's teleeducation program. We will start with who we are, then we'll address the problem, solution, and finally the future opportunity to scale globally. Each month, in two small conference rooms, one in Uganda and one in Minnesota, 12 country leaders meet, surrounding single screens to learn from each other. On both the Ugandan end and the Minnesota end, each individual represents a community partner or healthcare entity. Together, we make up CAHEFO Minnesota, an engaged group of leaders who interact via education. With limited capacity, we meet each week to facilitate learning in a third world, first world relationship that began about 3 years ago when Michaela and I interned with CAHEFO in Uganda. Having had the opportunity to learn from CAHEFO clinicians, work with them over the past 3 years, and finally become international members of CAHEFO, we've collectively identified that access to education is chiefly important, especially since non-communicable disease is the predominant cause of death in the country. Informed by our chief medical officers, Dr. Patel in the United States and Dr. Angayo in Uganda, CAHEFO Minnesota decided to use technology as a catalyst to facilitate education, which is the key to change anywhere in the world. CAHEFO has huge opportunity for impact, both because of location and community support. Located in the fastest growing region in Uganda, with access to one of the largest refugee populations per capita in the world, it's well placed for scaling. Also, because CAHEFO is an in-house nonprofit, the community there is very engaged in the organization. So much so that it's been chosen by the Ugandan government as a leader in relaying coronavirus information to the region and country. CAHEFO Minnesota is offering to use our relationships and cultural buy-in to go through 3 steps, which will accumulate in a Rotary Global grant later this year as we scale from low-risk teleeducation to a full-blown telemedicine initiative. We are proposing that the District 5960 and Sharks pay for phase 1 of this project, which will facilitate knowledge sharing through telecommunication. By bridging together all of our partners, we'll be able to provide access to tech equipment requiring little training, research models, educational curricula, community collaboration, and university involvement to bring cross-cultural communication and problem solving to greater Minnesota and Uganda communities, beginning with COVID-related information and then moving into additional established CAHEFO initiatives that offer further opportunity for education. With the technology infrastructure you all can help us provide, we see amazing opportunity for future success. CAHEFO Minnesota's teleeducation base will serve all of Uganda. Led by CAHEFO's native vision, it will build out into app development, medical device interfacing, and hopefully smart city future designing, beginning with this model in Uganda and then scaling after we see success.
With the current audiovisual technology, we can only accommodate 8 individuals per meeting. This means that the number of leaders and sectors being represented is extremely limited. Additionally, their current internet router does not have the capacity to broadcast live interactive meetings as such we're doing now without frequent delays. Meetings will continue to be held with the aforementioned limitations until funding is available. Our ask is for $3,000 to support the purchase of the proposed technology to sustain our efforts. The purchased equipment will be set up and maintained by CAHEFO's local technology team. With the proposed technology, our efforts can triple in impact. It will allow for increased participation volume in educational offerings to medical providers, university students, and other organizational partners in Uganda. The impact will stretch farther than the added participants. The benefits have the potential to spread through several large organizations as their meeting representatives bring back their acquired knowledge. Ultimately, we will be able to engage in dynamic conversations and learning as we work together to bridge intercultural communication and gaps across continents. We would like to summarize with a note of encouragement. Without a doubt, funding phase 1 of our proposal to pay for technology infrastructure will connect the world through education, open opportunities for cross-sector collaborators. build community, and serve humanity, all in an effort to fight disease, poverty, beginning with COVID and moving to our partners' greatest needs. We would like to summarize with a note. I want to leave you with one of our favorite quotes from our mentor, fellow Rotarian, friend, and founder of KFO. Rotary Sharks, as budding entrepreneurs, we thank you for the chance to bring our dreams for partnership to fruition. With that, we'll open the floor for questions, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lauren and Michaela. We're going to turn it over to the Sharks now for their 5 minutes, and we're going to start with Jim Christian with a question for you. Jim?
Thanks, Kyle. Thank you, Lauren, Michaela. The first question I have is, I see the technology, the magnification of that, and the ability to spread, very compelling. How does the telemedicine education, information, and service reach the final consumer?
James, yeah, that's a great question. I will take a stab at that. So first and foremost, we are at the stage of teleeducation prior to telemedicine. So phase one is really a lot more about information sharing and access to education. So we bring in cross-sector collaborators and leaders from each institution that's interested to engage in sharing of information both on the Ugandan end and the Minnesota end. So right now we're really focused on engaging in education and answering questions that they have on their end, and then also bringing in university partners on our end and answering questions. Following this phase one, we would move into a more global approach that would involve telemedicine, and then we would be able to interface with patients. But
Okay,
that's
backing
not.
up to the first phase, the collaborators are clinics. Who are the collaborators?
Yeah, absolutely. So the collaborators are within CAHAFO and then also partners in the area. So within Uganda, in the region we're focused in, Rotary is a collaborator. Within CAHAFO, there are 8 different clinics. So on the one slide that had bullet points of different areas, the head of the general clinic is there, the head of the maternal clinic is there, the head of the dental practice, etc. So right now, one individual who represents a whole organization is able to attend. We would like to be able to scale to allow all the clinicians or all of the people interested from each area to engage in these educational sessions. Does that answer your question better, James?
Yep, I read that in the proposal as well.
Perfect. We'll go to Mary. You have a question.
Yes, Lauren and Michaela, thanks for your presentation. And I read the information that was sent in advance as well. So my question is, in your narrative, you stated that the Ugandans have, and I'm just curious, we know that there are often problems with NGOs and the relationship with the government. And I just want to know, what data do you have that supports that statement that KAHFO is trusted by the Ugandans?
Yeah, that's also a great question. When we're talking about data collection in a third world population, as I'm sure you're aware, there are definitely some issues in collecting data, but the biggest thing that we know is that KAHFO is one of the only organizations to do community outreach clinics. So there are 3 clinics every week that go to external communities where they're actually engaging with rural populations, and they have huge turnout. We're talking about hundreds of people who come to KAHFO for care. And then in addition to that, right now we're tracking coronavirus questions that are coming into the organization. And I think just last month it was in the thousands of people who are directing their questions and concerns to KAHFO. So I think those would be great metrics to look at population involvement and trust.
Thank you. We'll go to Lonnie with a question.
Yeah, Lauren, Michaela, great job with the presentation. Loved it. Loved the project. Part of the project is to get the technology in place. My question is, I know there's a developing and great science around delivering teleeducation. Does part of the project need to include how you deliver the teleeducation beyond the technology?
Are you asking who would be delivering and building the curriculum?
Well, more around how you deliver teleeducation and who's kind of your expert that you can turn to in using the technology to effectively deliver teleeducation.
Yes, so we have a partner at Mayo Clinic that has done this in a few other countries, and so we have discussed with him, and he's willing to model the design that's been supported by data, and then we can utilize those types of platforms or techniques and then adjust according to topics that are relevant to Ugandans.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have time for one more, and David's got a question. Go ahead, David.
Well, thank you for a very interesting presentation. My question really is, after phase 1 and you move on to phase 2, do you have a plan for funding to make this a sustainable project for you?
That's a super exciting question, and I wish I had a ton of time to explain to you guys phase 2 and phase 3. Often our mentors are telling me, like, Lauren, don't get ahead of yourself. This is phase 1. But our plan is to build app infrastructure that will collect data that organizations and governments could buy into as a for-profit design to partner with the nonprofit. So by buying into this, we would have a greater opportunity to model population health in a third world country, which is one of the United Nations goals right now. And overall, I think that there will be great opportunity to create additional like buy-in and sustainable revenue there and then partner. So right now we're in like the phase of looking at how can we do that well, legally and over the table, and like start a business on the other side to help sort of fund this nonprofit for-profit relationship in an international capacity. So if you have contacts, send them our way, because we're super excited about moving forward.
Awesome. All right. Well, that'll be it for our 5 minutes for the Q&A. So once again, please join me, everybody, in thanking Michaela, Lauren, and the entire Rotary Club of Rochester for their great project. I know we've seen some awesome comments in the chat box. So thank you for being here, and congratulations on great work.